Hello, this is How To Bob, and I just got finished shooting the Mosin M9130, and it's time to get this thing cleaned up really good. As you can see here, we've used military surplus ammo, which is corrosive, so the cleaning is going to be a little different. I'm going to start out with some very warm water and put in just some basic ammonia. Now before I get started cleaning my rifle, the very first thing and most important is to check and make sure that the rifle is unloaded. I have the bolt pulled all the way back. I'm going to check the chamber here, pull that back, and make sure that it is unloaded, that there is no ammunition in the gun. Once I've verified that it is unloaded, I can start taking the gun apart, and I'm going to take the bolt off first, set that over to the side here. Now I'm going to take the bolt apart by simply sliding. All the pieces come right apart. You can see I'm going to set that in the ammonia water and let that soak for a little bit, just so that any of the corrosive materials come off of them. Now the unique part about the Mosin Nagant, it comes with all the tools you need to disassemble the gun, and you have to hold on to this part very tight because the spring here will shoot your firing pin out. And once I get that out, I'll go ahead and put it in the water, and now my bolt is completely disassembled. I can go ahead and disassemble the rifle. I'm going to start with the barrel bands here, and you simply push down on the spring clip, and then we'll go to the back one here, push down on that spring clip, and slide the barrel band all the way to the front. Now I'm going to soak all these pieces, every piece that I can, in the ammonia water, and what I'm trying to do is get rid of any of the corrosive parts that are left on the gun. It's just left behind from the primer. There's corrosive residue of potassium chloride or sodium chloride, which retains water and causes it to rust. So take out the bolt on the top here. Already taken out the bottom one, so there's two bolts holding this rifle together. The one on the bottom is the shorter one, and then the one on the top is a little bit longer. You can see here it's a little longer. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the ammonia water. Then the barrel just lifts right off of the gun, and set that off to the side here. And I can take my trigger guard off the bottom. That just slides right out the bottom here. Just pull it right out. And go ahead and take out my spring loading. Here we go. Put that in the ammonia water. And now that I have everything soaking for a little while, I'm going to go ahead and use my toothbrush and just scrub around and make sure that I get all the cracks and crevices. Usually soaking it does a very, very good job of getting any corrosive residue off of the parts. I'm going to go ahead and dry it a little bit with a old towel that I have, just to get most of the moisture off. I don't want to leave that sit on there. Then I just simply go through and scrub down each part, starting with the bolt here, and just working my way through each part of the gun. I want to make sure I get down in all the cracks and all the crevices of each piece and dry it off. Doesn't have to be dried off real good, because once I get all the pieces cleaned and dried off with a towel, I'm going to go back through with a can of air or an air compressor and blow off any moisture that's left on before I go on to the next step. So I'll just continue cleaning all my pieces here. Make sure I get enough of my ammonia and water solution in all the cracks and crevices so I don't leave any corrosive residue. It's not a big deal using corrosive ammo as long as your gun is cleaned after every time you shoot it as soon as possible. These guns were made to shoot the ammo, the old military surplus ammo, so it's not really a big deal, especially if you make sure you thoroughly clean your gun once you get done. Okay, now that I've got all my pieces done, I'm going to go ahead and soak the barrel and trigger in the ammonia water. I want to soak this in there pretty good so that it gets down in between the trigger and in the breech, inside the barrel. You can even pour some ammonia water down the barrel. You can use Windex for this as well. It's not a bad idea to use Windex in the field if you want to squirt a little bit of Windex with ammonia on your barrel, down in the barrel, just until you get home and get it a good soaking in ammonia water. So now I've got a little patch here. I'm going to soak that in my ammonia water. I just want to make sure that I soak the inside of the barrel so I can get any of that corrosive residue out with this ammonia. The ammonia water breaks down the corrosive residue that's left in the barrel and all over the parts. So that's why I'm making sure I thoroughly clean this gun out with the ammonia water. I'm going to go ahead and run a dry patch through now. And I should be able to get it all the way through there and pull it out, and it'll be a lot cleaner. And that'll take care of the inside of the barrel. Okay, now that I've got every metal piece of my gun clean, I can go ahead and dry off all the little cracks and crevices, get all the ammonia out, and I'm just using an air compressor to blow out any of the cracks, the holes, crevices that any of the ammonia water might be sitting into. And I'll do that for each piece that I've taken apart on the gun. Make sure I get most of the moisture out of there, any of the moving parts, because that in itself could cause some problems with the gun. So I want to make sure I get that good and dry. Make sure I get all the moisture out of the gun. I want to make sure I get inside the barrel, inside the trigger assembly, just anywhere that I had it soaking in the ammonia water. Try to get it as dry as possible in all the areas. And I'm going to use Gunzilla, and this is a cleaner and it also lubricates. So I'm going to use that very liberal, and I'm just going to pour it on the gun, and I'm going to wipe it around everywhere. And I'll leave a light coat on there, let it soak in, make sure that it penetrates into all the cracks and crevices, down around the trigger, and I'm going to scrub it in with my toothbrush. I'll wipe it up and down the barrel and work it around. And this will loosen up any dirt or grime that I have. And then I'm going to put some on my patch and run it up and down the barrel. Make sure I get the residue, the powder residue out of the gun, anything that's still stuck to the barrel that the ammonia water did not get out. And I'll follow that with my bronze brush. Run that down the barrel to loosen up anything that's stuck on the inside of the barrel. And once I get my brush, I'll run it back and forth a couple times. And once I get that done, I'm going to go back in with a dry patch and run that all the way down the barrel. And I'll keep doing that until the patch comes out clean. So I'm going to start with another clean patch, and I'll continue running a clean patch up and down my barrel until it comes out clean. So I'll continue to run another one down until it gets satisfactory. Once I'm satisfied with how clean the patch is, when I take it out, I'll stop. And I'll move on to some other pieces here. Let me wipe off some of the excess oil on the barrel here. This will leave me a nice coating of gun oil on my barrel and all my parts. I want to wipe off the excess, but I do want to leave a little bit on there. It can also be sprayed down with WD-40. I'm going to work my cleaner gun oil into all the moving parts, all the parts that I soaked. And this is just the normal way to clean a gun. The only thing different that would need to be done is with the ammonia, only because we were using corrosive ammo. I want to make sure I use as much cleaner inside, outside as I can. And then I'll go through and wipe off some of the excess, work down every piece of the gun that I have taken apart. Make sure I lubricate all the moving parts. Anything metal I want to cover with oil. That'll keep it from rusting and corroding. And once I get done scrubbing all the pieces down, I'm going to go ahead and lightly wipe off the gun oil that I put on. And I'll leave a little bit on there just to give it a thin coat of protective oil. Doesn't hurt to have that little thin coat of oil on there when you're storing your gun. Make sure you wipe each piece down. And I'll lay it out here. This is my bolt assembly, so I'm going to go ahead and lay that out. Put the spring back on the firing pin. And get ready to put my bolt back together here. I'm kind of laying it out. And you can see the fork on this piece here. That's used to put it back together. So I get this all cleaned up, I can go ahead and use that forked piece off the bolt to reassemble the bolt. Just want to get all my pieces all wiped off. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the bolt back together. It slides together. You can see that it slides right together here, and then it'll ramp up when it's in the locked position. So I'm going to take my spring firing pin and put it in. It's got a thread on the back, and then I'll take my forked piece here and I'll put that on the firing pin, and it's actually easier for me to rotate the whole bolt around until I get it started. Now you can see in the back there's a little line on the top. You want to get that as tight as you can and then stop with the line straight in line with the marks on the back, and then it'll cock and release. The spring is working just fine on this. Now you can see here that it's notch, so I'm going to put this forked piece in the little notch there, and that'll stay in place, and that will leave me one piece left to put on. And I'll put this on here. There's a little notch there that fits right in here, and then give it a quarter turn and it locks it into place. So now my bolt's all back together and it seems to be operating pretty well. Go ahead and put my trigger assembly back together, my follower on there, and that works out well. So now I'm going to go ahead and put the trigger assembly, trigger guard back up on the bottom. Go ahead and put my barrel back through the top of the rifle. And then you can see the two different size bolts here. The longer of the two bolts, as I said before, is going to go in the top. So I'll just go ahead and stick that in the top. And then I'll go ahead and just tighten it down. If you have the bayonet that came with your Mosin, you can also use the tip of your bayonet to assemble, disassemble, and reassemble your rifle. And then the smaller screw goes in the bottom. So now I'm going to put my handguard back on. And once I get that into place, I can then take my barrel bands and slide them down. You want to make sure that the split part of the barrel band, you can see here, is at the bottom, right there. And you want to make that at the bottom of the barrel. It just looks better. I assume that it would work if you put it the other way, but it would look a lot cleaner if you left it closed loop at the top. And the same thing on the front barrel band. I want to make sure that I put the split part at the bottom, and they just click right back into place. This gun is very, very simple to put back together. Next part is the bolt, and that simply slides into place. Once it slides into place, it's kind of locked into place there, and I want to make sure that it works good. Looks like it works very good. And the last thing I'm going to do is wipe down the wood, make sure it's good and clean. And this is how I clean my Mosin M90-130 after shooting corrosive ammo. This is How To Bob. Thanks for watching.